eyes are sick, but now that I have your attention. In today's video, we're going to be diving into this 351 Cleveland to see exactly what we've got. In the last video, we had gone ahead and kind of started to open it up and look at taking the cylinders off and all that, and now we're going to go even further, pull the pistons out, take a look at the crank, and see what we're actually dealing with. So join me for that, and we'll hopefully have some fun. I think I've mentioned before that as you get older, you kind of forget what you used to know. And so I had trouble getting that first piston out, as you might have seen in that video. But the reason is that the piston comes in, at an angle, and what you have to do is get the crank centered over that hole so that the piston does not hit the sides of the hole. If it does, you're kind of screwed, and you have to figure out how to back it off and move things around and everything else. So so I had that problem with the first one. Then I kind of remembered, I guess, and then from there, then I was able to go ahead and remove all the rest of these pistons. So let's dive into the assessment of that. All right, we got all the pistons out, and let's just take a quick look in the cylinders. I've got the pistons in order of the way that I took them out, and so really it's confusing because they're on the crank there are two, one for one side and one for the other, and so really when I take two out in a row, these two are 1 and 5, then these two are 2 and 6, and then on and on. So that's kind of how they came out, but it doesn't really matter. I think I'm going to be replacing these pistons, but I think one of the as I look at the different cylinders, they all look fine. There was no ridge, actually. They all came out with no problems. You can see there's a lot of buildup on the inside of this cylinder, which was one of the ones that had the rust on it. And so I think that a hone will clean that one up quite well. And so if we look at that one, that's going to be this one right here. And let's take a look at that one. And you can see the buildup on that. Those rings are kind of gummed up with rust from having to force their way through that as the engine was kind of stuck. So that's a good thing that we took that apart. It may have cleaned itself out, but that cylinder would have probably been burning oil and having quite a bit of blow-by for a while. Let's look on the other side and see if we can track that down. So this one looks clean. This one looks clean. This one looks like it had oh yeah, I remember this one had some rust in it. And you can see the side of it there. It's got some corrosion, so that'll clean up with a hone. And then this one looks good. So then if we look at the numbers, that's going to be 1, 2, let's see, 1, 5, 6, 7. That's number 7. And it's going to be, this is confusing, but I'm going to guess it's going to be a third set that I pulled out in the second one. So 1, 2, 3. So it's going to be this one right here. Oops, let's not get them mixed up. And again, not as bad, but you can see the rust on it right there, kind of gumming up those rings. So actually this one looks pretty bad too. You can see that one has quite a bit of gumming up, and the rings are kind of stuck in the bores. So yeah, so that is the damage, which is not bad at all. I think it would have run, and it would have probably cleaned itself up given enough time. But I'm going to take an opportunity to look at some optional pistons for this. One of the things is these pistons are dished pistons, which I believe came out in maybe 1972 or something like that, maybe 1973, but they're lower compression. And so the number of cc's, or cubic centimeters, that this displaces is a drop in the overall compression ratio. And so what I want to do is look at getting some flat top pistons, which will just bump the compression just a little bit. That's kind of my thoughts, rather than going with different heads or spending a bunch of time and money doing that. I think I can just get some different pistons. Now these are cast pistons, and so I've had to kind of do a little bit of research, but cast pistons are what come from the factory. They're cheap, they're easy to do, but the historically, or in the past, it was good to have forged pistons because they were stronger. But since that time, new technology has come about, and I'm not even sure how to pronounce it, but it's a hyper-eutectic pistons, I believe they call them, hyper-eutectic. Anyway, but basically they have silicone inside the pistons that reduce scuffing and increase the piston strength. And so there are some, it's new technology basically, and it's something that you find in all of the newer engines. And so I'm thinking about a set of those for this with flat tops. These are 30 over, and so that I would have to purchase 30 over pistons, and then kind of just make sure that the crank is cleaned up, get some new bearings in exactly a 30 over size. I'm sorry, these are not 30 over. I'll have to look and see what they are, but I know that they're over. Let's look. I don't know if you can see anything here. Let's take a look. There they are right there. It says, I believe these are just 10 over. And I'm going to turn you upside down, and you can see, well, it says 1096, so that may be the date that this thing was rebuilt, or at least shortly after that. I'm not sure. I'll have to look and see what these are. But all of these inside are in pretty good shape. There's a little bit of scratching we had seen on number 1 right there. You can see that. Number 2 looks fine. That one doesn't have the, oh yeah, it's right there. That one actually has some scratching in it, and I don't know why that is. It's interesting. It doesn't have the ring in there. That's just, that's the one I've got over there, so it's not scratched. It's just machine marks. So then we already looked at that one. That one has some light scratching in it. We go back over here. That one looks very good. That one looks like it has one single scratch in it. That one has a single scratch in it. And then that one looks really good. So I think that at some point maybe some contaminants went through this engine causing this damage, but even that damage is not significant. I mean, I think it would even run just fine. There's no copper showing anywhere here. So healthy, everything good. So I'm going to continue to go through and kind of clean this thing up, and as I kind of keep going, I'm thinking, well, I wonder if these lifters are any good. I'm sure they probably are, but I don't know. I'll probably pull them out and see. Look at the rust in that one right there. So yeah, I've got more work to do, but it's fun to kind of work through a process like this, to take an engine apart and disassemble it, and be methodical about looking at it and just kind of seeing what exists, because a lot of times when you're standing outside an engine, the work to get the engine out and get it disassembled is so much that you really don't, there's just no appetite for it. And so luckily I bought this engine already kind of out, and that made it a lot easier for me to kind of dive in. And I don't have a whole lot of work in this right now. This oil pan, because this engine, I literally bought this engine from behind a shed, and it was sitting on the ground, and so it was exposed to the elements, and the engine had been seeing some things like being thrown around, and it has some damage to the oil pan right there, and it was leaking out of the oil pan. And so I looked up this morning while sitting on the toilet. I looked up a oil pan for this thing, and they're like $75 for a Ford Blue one. And so it's like, how can you go wrong? I mean, that's super simple than beating that out and trying to weld up the crack and everything else. Plus, when you set an engine down on the oil pan, a lot of times you create damage to the mating surfaces, and then you're going to have a hell of a time getting it to seal back up again. So that's where I'm at, and I just wanted to bring you along. I'll just do a short little video on this, and I'm sure, probably be about 5 minutes long at the most. But just to keep you guys up to date on what I'm doing with the 351 Cleveland. Thanks for watching.